Hi Math 2 students, welcome to your 2.8 video. So let's go ahead, get started, make sure that you have your packet or some notebook paper ready. So the first question says, what is the opposite of adding? So this should be hopefully pretty easy for you guys. The opposite of adding should be subtracting, right? Next question asks, what is the opposite of multiplying? Well, it's dividing, right? Then it says, what is the opposite of squaring? So this one's a little bit tougher, right? Like if we took x squared, what would be the opposite of that? Well, the opposite would be taking the square root, all right? So the opposite would be the square root. And then last one says, what is the opposite of multiplying polynomials? So to kind of show you guys, okay, well, what is going to be the opposite of multiplying polynomials? So let's think about this. If we had like x plus 2, x plus 3, right? This is where we would FOIL or distribute, right? Or use our area model. This is us multiplying, right? We're multiplying these two expressions. Well, what's the opposite of that? That's actually factoring. Right, so yesterday when we were factoring, we were doing the opposite of FOILing, the opposite of that area model. All right, so let's go ahead and try this next one. So it says, use an area model to multiply each of the following. So hopefully by now you guys are pretty comfortable with using the area model. So I want you guys to go ahead, write in your numbers. We would have x plus 10, x plus 7. Go through, multiply, combine like terms, and get your answer. So hopefully you went through and got x squared, 7x, 10x, and 70. Then what we need to do is combine like terms, right? The x squared doesn't have any friends, so he's by himself. But the 7x and the 10x are like terms, so we can combine those and get 17x. And the last guy we got is our 70. He doesn't have any friends. So that would be our answer there. Next one. Go ahead, set it up. You would do x minus 9 on the top, x plus 5 on the bottom. Go ahead, multiply those out, and let's see what you get. So when I multiply these, I get x squared, 5x, negative 9x, and negative 45. So again, we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms, right? The x squared doesn't have anyone, but we can combine the 5x and the negative 9x. Make sure you pay close attention to the signs on these, right? You have to keep your signs and pay close attention. So you end up with negative 4x. And then the negative 45 doesn't have anyone, so it ends up with a minus 45. All right? So I want you to keep in mind, right, we just talked about how the opposite of multiplying is factoring, right? And we just multiplied. So we're going to kind of use that idea to factor, right? We use this area model to multiply. Now we're going to use this area model to go backwards and factor. So let's go ahead and try that. It's going to be a little bit trickier, but I know you guys can do it. So first off, let's go ahead and look at these area models. Notice how the x squared always goes in this box and always comes from multiplying two x's, right? Right, we get our x squared from there. So what we can do is we can put in our x squared here. Also, notice how this constant on the outside is always found in this box, right? The 70 found in this box. So what we can do is we can put our constant from this problem, which is a 12, right there. So they want us to undo the multiplication, right? We're going backwards. So we put in our x squared and our constant, and now I guess we could also put in our x's, right? But we need to figure out what numbers go here. So we have to go ahead, we're going to write out 12, and we're going to put the factors of 12, right? So some options would be 3 and 4, 12 and 1, 2 and 6, and yeah, I think that should be about it for that one. So we can look at our answers here and think, are any of these going to add to a positive 7? Well, my 3 and 4 look pretty promising. So I can put a positive 3 and a positive 4. I'm going to go ahead and check my work here. I'd get 4x, 3x. If I add those up, I end up with x squared plus 7x plus 12. So it looks like it checks out. So if I wanted to undo the multiplication, I would factor. And my answer for factoring here would be x plus 3 and x plus 4. So that would be me undoing that multiplication. All right, let's try the next one. Let's undo the multiplication here, right? We're going to factor this trinomial. So again, we put this x squared in this box and our constant on the end in this box. We can also put our x's in. So we need to figure out what multiplies to give us our 56. Now, one thing I want to point out, notice how in this problem, this number is negative, right? So these numbers need to add to give us a negative 15. So we're definitely going to have some negative numbers involved here. So let's write out our factors of 56. Now, since we know we need negative numbers, I would definitely recommend including some negatives, right, in our factors. So let's think. We've got negative 7, negative 8, negative 14, and negative 4, negative 56, and negative 1. Notice how, right, when you multiply two negatives, you get a positive, right? And then we would get negative 28 and negative 2. All right, so let's kind of check. Do any of these work? Will any of these add up to this negative 15 that we are interested in? And this negative 7 and negative 8 look pretty promising. So let's try it. We'll do negative 7, negative 8. I'd end up with a negative 8x and negative 7x. I'm going to combine my like terms. And I end up with what I started with, which tells me that I did it correctly. Remember how we can go back and multiply those binomials to check our factoring? So that checks out. So we would end up with x minus 7, x minus 8. That would be our answer there. All right, so let's go ahead and try to do some more factoring. All right, so let's go ahead. I will help you with this first one here. So we've got an 18. So we need to figure out what is going to multiply to give us an 18 and add to give us a negative 9. So we want a positive 18, negative 9. Now when this number is positive, but this number is negative, both of your factors are going to be negative. So that's that might help you. So you might want to write that down. When your constant is positive, but your middle term is negative, both of your factors are going to be negative. All right. So, and the reason for that, right, is if you have two negative numbers, you'll get a positive. So that's how you end up with a positive here, but a negative here. All right. So let's write out our factors of 18, and I'm going to make them both negative. So we get a negative 3 and a negative 6. We could do a negative 18 and a negative 1. Or a negative 2 and a negative 9. So let's check and see, will any of these work? Well, I've got I think this negative 3 and negative 6 are going to work pretty good. So I'm going to do x minus 3, x minus 6. So this should be reminiscent of what we did yesterday, right? We practiced doing this yesterday. Now, here's my answer. If you are more comfortable with using the area model, if you want to draw the boxes out and do it the way that we did previously, feel free to do that, or you can do it the way that we did yesterday. So if you prefer the area method and you want to draw out your boxes to factor, feel free. All right, so let's go ahead and try this one. So first thing, let's find factors of 10. All right, I would get 2 and 5 and 10 and 1. So I want you to see if you could figure out how you'd factor this. All right, so I am going to use the 2 and 5. x plus 2, x plus 5, right? That's going to add to give me my 7. And that'd be my answer. All right, let's try this next one. First thing we have to do is find the factors of -8. Now the thing is, when this guy is negative, you have a lot of options. All right? And the reason for that is that tells you that one of your factors is going to be negative. So we can go ahead and write that out. Let's think. We've got 2 and 4. We've got, or actually I should say -2 and +4. Or we could also do +2 and -4, right? Both of those would give me a -8. We could also do +8 and -1, or -8 and +1. So looking at these, let's see if we can figure out which one might be best. Well, we're trying to add to give a +7. I'd say this right there is going to be our best bet. So we would do x plus 8 and x minus 1. All right, so for D, notice how this last number is the same, right? It's a -8, so we got to write out the factors of 8 and try and find the answer. So go ahead, I want you to do this one totally on your own. I would recommend using the factors that we already wrote out. See if you can figure this one out. So on this one, we're trying to add to give us a -2, right? So if we look here, which one of these are going to give us a -2? I'd say the 2 and -4. So we would do x plus 2 and x minus 4.